In previous videos I got the cab onto the frame and all the other body parts, got everything lined up and built some mounting brackets. So this is now all located. Next up I would like to do a test fit with the engine and the gearbox. Stick that in there, see what is required to build engine mounting brackets and what the implications is with the firewall. Coming up. Hey, how's the jokes? Welcome back to the shop. If you don't know me yet, my name is Diff and I run a one-man shop in the middle of a forest. On a small farm close to the southern coast of South Africa. So what does this bush mechanic know about the intricacies of YouTube? There's a thanks button down here and I never thought much about it. And then I got a big surprise when I received some notifications. So I'd like to do a big shout out to Ace Adman, Dooner F and 426 Baron for your contributions toward the project. From the bottom of my heart, thanks. I appreciate it a lot, my brothers. So I want to stick the engine in there and the gearbox to see the implications and what would be required to make it work. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is just to remove the hood and the grill shell. It will just make it so much easier. Yeah, so I'm not going to take the hood off. It's on the hinge here. And I had a struggle to do those bolts. I'm going to see if I can take this whole piece off in one unit. I just need to undo the bonnet latch or bonnet catch or hood latch. Right, let's see. I don't know if I'll be able to do this. There we go. That wasn't too hard. I need to move this thing back so that the chain block lines up with the engine bay here, so I can drop that engine in. So neighbor Wayne popped in quickly to give me a hand, but now he's run away again. At least now I can have a look, see, and figure out what would be required to make all of this work. Let's have a closer look. I've got the engine resting on this wooden block that is sitting here on the cross member. So first things, there's ample clearance here, which is a good beginning. Although I do think the engine would sit down lower. Let's look what is happening with the gearbox side of things. So in here, the gearbox is currently resting on this cross member here, which is part of my new floor structure. So that you can see that the output shaft of the gearbox is way higher than this position here where the bearing carrier for the prop shot sits. So this definitely needs to drop down. I'm going to have to cut this cross member so the gearbox can go down. Just looking at it, I think I might have to actually cut or modify this original cross member as well. I don't think it's going to allow me to drop the gearbox down far enough. I will have to reevaluate when I've got this cut out. But just looking at it now, I don't think this is going to work. I've got a very strong feeling that I'm going to have to cut this out completely. Yeah, so to get a rough idea, I've just stuck in this piece of pipe to simulate the approximate position of the prop shaft. Might not be perfect, but I think it's good enough for now. So yeah, this point needs to drop down by something in the region of 5 inches, thereabouts, 125 millimeters, which means that this point would also need to drop down by 5 inches, and then we can see that I'm definitely going to foul that frame cross member here. So yes, there is going to be a problem here. I'm definitely going to have to cut this section out and build something new to allow me to have the back gearbox mounting in the correct spot. So as far as that pinion angle business goes, let me stick this on here. Wait for it to steady. What am I getting there? Looks like about 2 degrees. Let's go see what we measure on the actual diff itself. And if I stick my angle finder on here, let's see what we get. I can't see. It's about, looks like 4 degrees. So with nothing planned and purely by accident, the engine angle is not that far off in relation to the pinion angle in the back. 2 degrees versus 4 degrees. So it's close enough for what we're trying to look at the moment. Of course, I can change the pinion angle of my diff down the line because I'm intending to do 4-link in the back. But I mean, it's a good departure point to just get a feel for what my engine angle should be. So if the back end needs to drop 5 inches and I want to maintain the same engine angle, it would make sense that I need to go down 5 inches here as well, which is not possible. This block here is in the region of 3 inches, 75 mil. I would want some clearance here, so I can only drop this by maybe somewhere around 50 millimeters or 2 inches. So that will definitely change the engine angle with the way things stand at the moment. Yeah, we'll have to evaluate things. As far as 4.5 positioning goes, currently my gearbox is fouling the firewall right in there. Might be hard to see, so I can't move it further back. But already we've only got about let me see, about a 2-inch gap between the existing firewall and the engine. So there's not a lot of space left for moving further back anyway. But looking at this, I think this engine does need to move further back. I need enough space here in the front for a radiator, fan, and that grill shell. And I actually think there is not going to be enough space the way it sits now. So I'm going to stick this grill shell on quickly so we just can see what's going to be happening up here. So let me just get this thing on here so that we can have a see at the amount of space we need. Let me just stick a bolt in there to hold it roughly. Come on. Right, something like that. That's holding it roughly in place. I can get this nut on here. Okay. Yes, I see problems. Let me show you. Let's not call them problems. Let's call them challenges. That's a much more positive way of looking at things. There's very little space in there. By the time I've got a fan on here, or even an electric fan, the radiator is going to have to sit way in there, and it's getting very narrow in here. So yeah, it's a bit difficult to see in here, but maybe this will work to show you. I need to provide some space here between the pulley and where the radiator would need to sit. So I think the radiator would need to sit around there somewhere, and we only got a width here of about 450 millimeters. What would that be in inches? 18 inches, roughly, I think. My calculations are right. That's a very narrow little radiator. I don't think it's going to work the way it is at the moment. So I definitely need to move this engine further backwards so I can get more space in here for fitting a radiator. So as this nose widens, here at its widest point, I've got about 600 millimeters, 24 inches, which is still quite narrow, eh? So whichever way this goes, I'm still going to have a custom radiator built to fit into this confined space. But the further back I can get the motor, the better. I mean, a radiator that's only 450 mil, 18 inches wide. That sounds a bit crazy to me, man. I've convinced myself that this engine needs to move back. So that means I need to cut a section out of the firewall here. And if I can get it to go back by about 200 millimeters or 8 inches, that'll be awesome. I don't know if it will be feasible on the inside of the cab. We'll have to go check that out. But whichever way, I need to cut open here so that the engine can move back some more. So here's another angle, kind of hard to see, but maybe you'll understand what I'm trying to say. If I can cut this here and move this back so that it lines up maybe with that there, provide an opening, you know, so that the whole engine can move back. That's distance that it can move back. If I go to that point is maybe about 7, maybe 8 inches. So if I can do that, that'll be great. It's just going to depend now what is going to happen on the inside of the cab with regards to leg space and all the rest of it. If I do that. So yeah, kind of difficult to see what's going to be happening here when I do it with regards to leg space and with regards to you and me all getting into the small space here. Fact of the matter is this engine needs to move back. So I am going to cut out this whole section here. And then we can move the engine back, and then we'll see the impact on the leg space and where the tunnel needs to start, probably in this region here somewhere going down. We'll have to see what we do when we get there. And just looking at this here, this gap again, if this engine moves back 6 inches or so, then we're not going to have this issue here anymore, because the sump will actually sit behind that cross member which means that the engine can drop down a little bit more. That's not going to be a bad thing either. So building engine mounting brackets is going to be really easy to do. Actually, lots of space here. So even with the engine moved back, that won't be a problem. That can easily be done. Like I said, lots of space here to do all sorts of things. And just to give myself even more space, I'm going to cut this part off here, because it really doesn't serve any purpose. So it can definitely go on both sides. So it looks like I've established a game plan. I've got to cut this piece off on both sides. Pretty much have to cut this whole firewall away on the cab. I've got to cut a piece out of my floor substructure, this cross member here. And I've got to cut a piece out of this cross member of the frame or the chassis through there and through there, so I can drop the gearbox down. So that means take the engine and the gearbox out again, take the cab off the frame again, take everything apart again. It will be fun, they said. And since this old greybeard are looking for excuses not to take that engine out by himself, I'm going to call this a video, and I'll wait until I can find someone that can give me a hand. Maybe I'll put in an hour or so of sanding off some more of this white paint, like I've started doing. Thanks for spending time with me here in the shop. I enjoyed it. I'll see you oaks in the next video. Until then, have a lekker one.